overcome is getting out of $60,000 of debt. So, our teamwork, thank you for that. Biggest joy is our 4 kids. We have Victoria, who is 14. I'm nervous.
See, she does all this with notes, and I just...
Yeah, right, he just knows about the time and stuff. We have, did I say she's 15? And then David is turning 14. That's why I looked at 15. And then we have Kate, who is 11, lots of spunk, and Johnny, who is 9, he loves football. We got this Madden game from a family video, and they had a free game at night or something, so now he loves football. But those are our biggest joys. The best quality about you, he loves to have fun, you guys. I'm the one that, let's get things done.
I was wondering what that was.
So I appreciate how he balances me out. He likes fun, he's funny, he is strong in his faith. That attracts me to him, and he's the best dad in the world. So thank you for loving me. Thank you for working hard to provide for our family, and for your unwavering faith even through valley times. He just lost his brother this year, and did a great job with the funeral. So one of our prayers, I don't have any emotional. Our prayer for you. I loved how Tony and Linda talked about the pink lens and the blue lens. It is absolutely true. We may look like we have a gray marriage, and we do, but we fight again. Because, they talked about that pink and blue, so our prayer is that you find lavender, right? You want to find that gracious understanding. So I encourage you to work hard at it, and pass it on to your home.
Now I'm nervous because I didn't write anything down. It's all from here. Okay, so this is my husband Jim, and we've been married over 11 years in June. And we met in college at University of Michigan. We were both in the marching band. Yeah. And Marta and I were both single at the time, so he had a pick. I guess he doesn't like curly hair. Anyway, so we have 3 kids. Gianna's 7, and Nina is almost 4. Well, she'll be 5, and then Sebastian is 2, and he's just a great dad, and he loves the Lord, and he just spurs me on in my walk, and I appreciate that because he reads a lot of, he's always reading the Bible or lots of devotional books, and it's just, he's always encouraged me to grow in my faith and to serve relentlessly. So I'm always, that's probably the thing I appreciate about him most. And he's just such a sweet dad to our kids. So, and he will braid my daughter's hair better than I do. So he always is back like that. He'll braid their hair, and I'm like, dang, you got some skills. So we need to work on French braiding though. So
I was gonna say you can line up in the back corner after and do it. I do not have 2 husbands. We don't really encourage it. But we gotta use what we can. So this is my dad. And it's so time to come out and share a man that I love and dearly respect as well. His name is Brian Rogers. Him and my mom have been married for 41 years. I just whispered, I was like, 41. What? So 41 years they've been married. They have my sister and I, they have 2 daughters, and they have 6 grandchildren. And one of my favorite things about my dad, I actually was looking through some pictures, is growing up, we always went camping. And I mean, he's got 3 girls, so taking us camping, I'm sure was no easy feat, especially as teenagers. But just the opportunity to get away and unplug and explore and get dirty and try new things was just something that I always enjoyed growing up. And that's a tradition that he has continued, and my mom with our children, with their grandchildren, and they'll take them and they go on these adventures without us, and it's just a and it develops just a really sweet bond and a trust. And I know that what they're doing, they're sharing just their wisdom in life and loving on them, and it's just something that I treasure. My dad is someone who loves well. He loved me well growing up, and my sister, and he loves his wife well. I can't think of a time that I've not come and seen flowers on the counter for my mom in a love note, and that's just something that I got to see growing up, and it blesses us. So when you have good marriages and you love your spouse well, I feel like that's something that blesses your children. You see that, and I remember seeing those things that he did with my mom. And that was something that I, in turn, went and looked for, for my marriage and what I was looking for in a man. So this is my husband. We have been married for, it will be 14 years in May. We have 2 daughters. We have an 8-year-old Reed, who's in 3rd grade, and we have a 5-year-old Harper. And something that I admire about him is he is just someone who is constantly striving and pushing to do better, to learn more, to know more, to sharpen those skills. And he has always been a huge dreamer. And that's something that I was so drawn to when we got married. And I felt like it was something that I wasn't. And he has helped awaken that in me. And so that's something I don't think I did well before. And that's something that he has taught me in these years of being married. I love being his wife. I love watching him love his daughters. I think he used to kind of like chuckle at the relationship that I had with my dad when we were dating, and I'm watching him become that man. Oh, his name is Tim Shelton. I kind of started with that, sorry. I got to share with the group about, we've been through many trials in marriage, and I know that there will still be many to come. I got to share with the group about our marriage and our relationship, and just one of the seasons that we went through that was really difficult. And I said to him, it was just last week, and I stood there and was talking about this place that we were in that was really hard and awful, and I said, this is not what I dreamed of for marriage. And I don't know if any of you have felt that way or maybe sat there before, but I felt like, and I told him, I'm like, and this is not what you dreamed of for marriage. This isn't what you wanted it to be. And I said, when I left there and after I shared that story, I feel like right now, our marriage was what I dreamed of a marriage to be. And it takes a lot of work, and it's not easy, and there's ups and downs, but we worked really hard at it. We watched both of our sets of parents work really hard at it. And then just to share with you too, because I'm thinking of all of the women in this room, I know that some of you right now are not married, or some of you are just in relationships, or some of your relationships might be with your dad or uncles or brothers. And I just want you to know that what they're sharing today is not just about marriage, they're just sharing about how their minds work so much differently than ours, and what's important to them, and we can learn from that and better ourselves from that, and love them well, and set those examples for our children, and especially for our sons. So this is for everyone who is here today, we want to share with you. So ladies, thanks for introducing them. We're going to hand over the mics and invite these guys to be in the hot seat, I guess we'll say. And we're just going to kind of do this in a conversational way. So I'm going to just kind of share or direct a question. You can pass if you decide to pass. But most importantly today, we want to hear from your experiences. Ladies, this is not like, I don't want you to go home and go, husband. I want you to know, that you're going to see these men, in some of their best light. But I just want you to give a thought into, what does it take to let my husband lead our family, or what does it take to respect him? That's what we're kind of trying to do, is just kind of get into the mind of a man. So I'm going to start first. I'll start with Tim. And we would love to know, I'm going to just say these as weak questions because I think we kind of all would like to hear about this. We would love to know how you feel respected.
This is me, this is not all men, so this, not putting anything on you guys. I would say, when you let me lead, and cleaning the house is respectful to me because I work really hard and I want our stuff taken care of. So it's just kind of unfortunate I can't undo that DNA that was, hardwired with my dad. So to me, clean house, our stuff's taken care of. She does a great job of saying, hey, thank you for working really hard. That's for me.
Would any of you want to chime in? Because I know it looks different for every man.
Part of respect for me is affirmation. Sorry. My wife does such a great job. We've had struggle in our marriage, and we will continue. She still squeezes the toothpaste from the middle. She's still, it's been 41 years. I try to show her. Well, I do that. I do. No, you don't. So we still haven't got past that. It's been 41 years, but she knows how to affirm me the right way. She's my biggest cheerleader. She tells me she loves me. She tells me that I'm a good pop, I'm a good father, that I love well. As Kelly said, I appreciate it about her. She's, in arguments, we don't really argue now. I think we discuss. But we went through that love and respect, and we learned to debate better. That we can openly express how we feel. And I can say, this makes me feel this way. Well, I know. Well, this makes me feel this way. If you do this or say that. And we're still learning. And but like I said, she's my biggest cheerleader. And affirmation is one of the biggest things that I need, and she does it well.
Thank you. I was going to say, well, I know she's not here. See, everyone else's wife is here. I'm going to tell. So, you're being recorded. Jim, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that a wife can do for her husband is to represent him well, which is and including your own family, his family. Not to say that you shouldn't have a close circle of people, but you do to reach out to when you have questions like, I don't know how to deal with this certain situation. I think it's also the job of the husband to do that also, is to make sure that if we disagree about something, that I don't make her appear to be less in somebody else's mind, and the same for her towards me. And I think that goes a long way so that you're not kind of going behind anybody's back to figure out the problem. The problem is we're having this one issue between us, and we are dedicated to figuring it out without, you don't want to tarnish anybody's reputation when they're not there. Well, even if they are there, but either way, you want to represent each other well.
How about you?
Okay, so a lot of my, Susan and I taught a married class here, so we read this book called His Needs, Her Needs, right when we first got married, and it was really life-changing for me to kind of see how she used things. So with respect, in that, a man's need becomes admiration. So Susan shows me respect, or how I like to receive respect. How about that? I shouldn't say it. The way I like to receive respect is I like to be cheerleaded or something, right? Like, hey, we changed. I'll give you a real life example here. We changed our cabinet hardware, right? It makes some improvements in our kitchen, right? So we bought the cabinet hardware a year ago, and I just put them in about 2 weeks ago. I still want to be cheerleaded for it because I did it, right? So now, but see, that's the way your man thinks. No matter how long it takes him to do that, I still want the appreciation. So it's funny, like I said, it's I try to tell a lot of jokes. Susan and I, one of the biggest things in our marriage and relationship for you ladies that are married right now is we try not to argue in public, right? Because I'm a pretty prideful guy. So if we're arguing in public, I'm fighting to win. It's like in private, I can soften my stance and try to see what she's saying. And I'm not saying, maybe that's not like that for you guys. I'm not trying to throw all guys under the bus and they're all just like you. But I feel like most guys have a lot of pride, and we think we're right, or else we're not arguing about it. So I mean, like early in our marriage, before we developed these rules, I I'd fight to the end. Our first year of marriage, I'm fighting until she cries. Oh, I won, she's crying. So I'm just saying that as like, sometimes if you guys can maybe develop rules about conflict, at the beginning of it, kind of is better. So.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's interesting to hear what shape it takes for each men, and I hear some of the same themes in some of what you're sharing, but some is different.
Yeah, I would also say, when she asked me this 6 years ago in the midst of a disaster in our marriage, what makes you feel respected? The reason I stammer a little bit is because it's hard to communicate. I know it when I see it. So if your husbands or significant others, you ask them that, and they say, I don't know, it's pretty normal. It takes a little while to get it, and the reason it's funny, clean house, but that's the output of so many other inputs in my DNA. She's a great cheerleader. You guys are saying I work really hard and not arguing about the same thing, but to me that's like the expression of respect for me. But it's really not about the clean house. It's about all the other things that go on.
And that's something that I would maybe encourage you guys to do, because once I got the understanding of what respect was, I sat down with a pen and paper, and I was a news reporter, and I was like, who do you respect? What makes you feel respected? Why do you respect them? Just because it's such an abstract concept. And like he said, I think men are still trying to, figure that out too, and if they've never been asked, it's probably hard to formulate that answer. But it's something as simple as that, oh, does it make you feel disrespected? Or, oh, does this, are you feeling respected if I'm taking care of this? It's just a simple way to communicate, and what that is to them is what love is to us, which is why it's so valuable. I'm going to direct this question, I'll start with you this time, Dan. Why is it difficult for some men to communicate?
I'm 60, so I wrote a couple books. I forget what I had for breakfast sometimes. Men like to be in control. We like to be in control of our surroundings, situations. So a lot of times when we get into discussions or arguments, the emotions take over. Well, it's very hard to control your emotions without getting mad, upset. Women cry, that's said one if they cry, I guess. So men don't like the confrontation. So a lot of times we just shut down. We shut down. I know somebody will ask you, you're sitting on the couch, you're just sitting there, what are you thinking about? I'm not thinking about nothing. I'm just being quiet. Right? And men can go there. Men can think about nothing. In my situation is, in my marriage, I had a life before Christ. So I look at the old man, and the old man was terrible. I could get in an argument with my wife, and we could not talk for 2 or 3 days. We'd give each other the silent treatment, and it worked. But after we came to Christ, that opened a new avenue that we could express our emotions. That I am so quick to forgive now. Like I said, I could go 3 days without even talking, just going through the motions of life. But now that Christ is in our life, I go for forgiveness. The Scripture tells you don't let the sun go down on your anger. That's something we try to do. We try to live that. Because if you go to bed mad, you're going to wake up mad. And usually twice as mad, or you're not going to sleep good, and it's going to be worse. But that's one of the biggest things. And, men, too, is not having control. As we were raised, some people said it's not good to cry, that it's a weakness. There's a weakness in you, and there's a weakness to give in. So men like control. That's why sometimes it's hard to talk.
I was going to say, do any of you have anything to add into that? Thank you for sharing that. That was insightful.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kat.
Oh, you're fine.
I was just going to say about communication, and now my mic is on, so you guys can all hear me communicate. But for Susan and I, and like I said, or for men in general, you know, you heard the thing about like a man's brain is like waffles, where you have all these little compartments, and we're very good at compartmentalizing things. And then a woman's brain is like spaghetti, where everything's all tangled together of your day, right? And so Susan has these lists going on in her mind, like the thing about not putting the handles on. And me, that's in my little handle compartment, and I'm not even thinking about that. So it's, you know, you talk about communicating, but, you know, I'm very like, what's my little box? What am I communicating about? Hey, you know, Pistons won the game last night, or, you know, spring training start for the Tigers, all right, or what's the weather gonna be like, you know? And she's thinking about, I mean, she's very good at thinking about grand things or whatever, like, what is our family going to do for vacation? When are our children going to high school? And I'm like, oh wait, we open up the high school box, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not in my mind all the time. Where she's very like, you know, I overmarried, I'll tell you that. So, and without her, you know, I mean, I'm down here operating at this level, and she's like, you know, like I said, she's very good at, you know, like I said, keeping her family moving in a direction. Even like something that's important to me, like being in church on time. Right? I'm like, oh yeah, wait, it's Sunday morning. I have to think about, we have to get everybody moving. And she's like thinking about through the week, like, what can we do differently to get everybody awake faster, moving towards that direction? So communicating usually for us is, you know, me trying to find out which box to open to talk to her about.
I so appreciate that reminder of just thinking about how differently that is. Like when you talked about, my dad said the nothing box, right? I've never thought about nothing ever. Like, I can't think of the last time I was not thinking about 27 things at the
It's
same time.
everything you would think it could be, though, Kelly.
I'll just see if I can borrow that from Tim sometime. But it's crazy to think about that. And knowing, like, that it's just different. We're not around. It's just different. That's how God created men. That's how God created women. It's just so insightful to see. And yes, everything ties together for us, and then we can separate those things out. That sounds really relaxing.
It's a good way to live life.
Really relaxing.
It gets you in trouble.
So thinking about you as fathers too, and I appreciate hearing about you as husbands, and we'll touch on that more too. Jim, I'm going to direct this question now towards you. What, as a dad, when you're walking in the door, what is something you need?
Yeah, the more I thought about this question, the harder it got. Because I know, so usually I call Angela on my way home from work. And just to see, you know, how things going, you know, how's your day been, what's going on. So a great evening for me starts when I call her and she's like, hey, how's your day? You know, things are going pretty good. You know, and like sometimes though, you call and I hear and I go the problem is though, like I can't ask her, and your husbands can't ask you to manufacture some sort of faux joyfulness. You know, I can't expect that of Angela. And so that's what I like, and that helps me a lot, but I know at the same time, you know, that it's not right for me to say, you know, put on a smile when I come home. It's not right.
Because I'm saying this now, I'm trying to be totally honest with you. I know that it's not going to happen, but it would make me feel a lot better. You know what I'm saying? If Susan, like, we have a golden retriever that when I come in the door, that dog acts like she's never seen me before, right? So if Susan was like running to me, ready to kiss me or lick my face or whatever, well, I would change my day around. Right, baby, I see, she knows. The dog is there every day trying to bark at me.
That might be why you got a dog.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, still, after 41 years, my wife greets me at the door when I come home. And she always gives me a kiss. If not, I'll say, I'm home. I'll say it again, I'm home. You know, and my daughters were the same way. They always ran and greeted me at the door after work. And it just makes, you know, a man is coming back to his safe place. You know, the world beats us up. You know, our jobs are taxing, tiring, mentally challenging. So when you come in the door and it's back to your safe place, that has always been a reward for me, is to have my wife meet me at the door, just to give me a kiss and say, you know, that I love her and she loves me.
Yeah, same thing. I will say I learned a trick about 7 or 8 years ago that helps me when I get home, because like you're saying, Jim, no chance I walk in and like everything's perfect. Right now we have balloon animals all over the house. That's what my 8-year-old includes. But it'll pass. I'll pass. But what I do is actually just, I got about an 11-minute commute, which is awesome. But when I get in the car, the first thing I do is I call one of my best friends, and it just gets me out of like the work zone, and we talk about golf or whatever we saw on TV or whatever. And then I get home, I get in the driveway, sit down, take a deep breath, and then walk in. Run and, well, now it's iPad. For the most part, they give me a kiss and so forth, and the dog, I got one of those too. That's why I got a dog, by the way, because I knew that. That's right, I know. Yeah, but it's just like 11 minutes for me to like detox, so that when I walk in the door, I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. Because the reality is, I got 3 hours with the kids. That's just, you start to add that up over 18 years, it's just not that much time. So I try my best to just be present. It's not perfect, but I try.
I think for me, when you guys are talking about that greeting, it makes me think, and if any of you have preschoolers, it makes me think, because we don't get that greeting when we get home. We're like, oh, there's 3 dishes, and they're not in bed. It's an hour past their bedtime, and why are you taking the dog out? That's kind of what we walk into. So for us, maybe who aren't working and gone for the day, it makes me think of like when I go pick up my preschooler, like she comes out and like she's shoving other parents and people out of the way to run and give me a hug, and that greeting makes me feel so loved. And so I'm thinking, okay, if that is truly how we enjoy being greeted, it only takes a minute. And I know, like, we're in the throes, and I've been ready to, like, you know, shove a baby and, like, run out the door. I know some of us have had many of those days. But if, you know, I feel like if they're willing to kind of take a breath in their car, and I think maybe we can do the same to give them a warm greeting. That's a really good reminder. So, keeping on being a dad, I would love to hear. Let's hear what's most challenging to you about being a dad. And don't discount too that we know that you're in another season of fathering. They're all in kind of different seasons of fathering and with varying ages of kids. So even from that, we love to hear too.
I can start with that. So for me, it's a perspective thing. It's the most challenging piece. So she was sick Friday and Saturday. Super dad Friday, pretty good dad Saturday, pretty lousy dad on Sunday, like 3 days, right? And you know, the kids, like we came to church and went home, and at like 3 o'clock they conned me into like iPad time, and then like 7 o'clock it was like, oh, they're still on their iPads. You know, that's like, so that was like a shining moment for me. But what I'm kind of getting at is like, I lose sight very often of how short this window is that we have them. And at some points, I do really good with that, and then at some points I don't. And you know, going to work and working 50 or 60 hours a week, it's easy to come home and want to just, you know, detox, just turn on the TV or whatever. But I constantly am fighting to engage with them, because the reality is, it is such a short period of time. And so I think one of the things we do well is remembering that, trying to create memories, going on adventures and teaching them to live life to the full. But it's also the thing that I struggle with, because it's like that comfort of just being able to sit on the couch and do nothing. We're really good at that, like thinking about nothing. And I just gotta continually fight to remember I can do nothing a long time from now, because we're gonna go on.
attest to that. You know, when our kids were little, you always wanted to improve life for them, to do better than your childhood was. You wanted them to go further than you did. We were able to send both our girls to college. And, you know, you think once they're 18 and they're out the door, then it's all good. But it continues. It still continues. And we have such a great relationship, me and Kelly and Amy. I know one time Amy called me, and our one grandson was 6 months old. He was in the hospital. He had RSV. They didn't know if he was going to live. And then the other son fell, cut his lip. And she called me and she was like, Dad, when does this end? I said, you're 29 and you're still calling me. It doesn't. You think just because they're growing up and they're out of the house that it ends. But you still have concern and worry and care. And then it's grandchildren. We have 6 grandchildren from ages 5 to soon to be 15, and he's going to be driving. That's a whole nother thing when your grandson's going to be driving. So, you know, it's just being, like Tim said, being present. Your time's short. You know, God has just blessed our family. I have a Christian son-in-law. I have 2 Christian daughters. Their in-laws are Christian. You know, it's just we're so blessed, and it's just enjoy the time. Enjoy the time now, and be present. I like how you said that.
One of the, I think the biggest challenge of being a dad is the same as the biggest challenge of being a human, is of being a Christian. And that's to live a life that's submitted. And I just finished this book a month or 2 ago, and it's called Parenting. It's relatively new, and I wish I would have read it like 7 years ago, because it changed my mind on a lot of things. And one of the things that it kind of impressed on me was that as parents, we do not own our children. We are not their owners, and we are ambassadors of God's kingdom to them. They've been placed in our family, not for our comfort or our satisfaction or our pleasure, although we get those things sometimes out of our kids. We get enjoyment from them. They don't exist to pacify my desire to come home from work and be rested and to relax and zone out. And so I think the biggest challenge is fighting, to use the word fighting, and it's a fight for me, and I think for all of us, to remember that my goal is, it shouldn't be to teach them to be quiet when I want it to be quiet, or to go play by yourself when I'm tired of reading books, or to do all these things that are not really the reason that they're here. It's to fight to teach them God's word, and to set aside what I want to do in the moment, my own natural tendencies, to submit myself to my kids, because, I mean, it sounds weird to say that, but it truly is what we're called to do. We're to submit our lives and lay down our lives for our wives and our children, so that they learn to love the Lord. And you can drag your kids to every church activity for as long as they live in your house. You can be there every night of the week, and you can't save your children. One of the writers that I've read the most of is just a phenomenal teacher, preacher, and had a bunch of kids, and multiple kids walked away from the church at various points in their life. It's like, well, if this guy can't force their kids into belief, what chance do I have? I don't have a single chance. That's on God. And that the burden is to remember that I don't carry that burden. It's on God to change their hearts, to give them a heart of flesh rather than ours to.
So, for me, I guess my biggest challenge being a dad, is that kind of a question? I want to make sure, because I was listening to everybody's answers. But it's, okay, so we have 4 kids, you know, and I'm going to go back to when they were younger, though. they're all very different. So it's learning what works with them. Now our first child, Victoria, very compliant. I mean, if I said, Victoria, clean your room, like that, she would almost like be ready to break into tears, right? You know, but now my next son, David, he's kind of introspective or whatever. Now my daughter, Kate, I can spank Kate every day, and she's gonna do what she wants to do. I mean, she doesn't, I mean, it's almost like she feels like I should be doing what she wants to do, you know? So it's kind of frustrating to try to figure out what works with Kate. So with Kate, maybe you have to find what she loves. She loves cooking nowadays, or she loves animals. So why don't you hurry up and do this, and you can watch pit bulls and parolees or something, you know, something that she likes to do, you know? So it's just learning their different styles. And so as a dad, I feel like charged with the discipline, right? And I like to be the fun guy. I like to play with them. I want to come home and wrestle with them all the time and kiss them, and, you know, but I can't make Susan the bad guy all the time. Like, hey, that's a fun guy. He's going to let me be on an iPad for 4 hours, even though I don't have you know. And I struggle with that too. I'm just saying, because I just do. I want to like, yeah, let's go ahead. Who cares about homework? We're gonna, you know, play Madden football. So, but that's where I struggle with. I struggle with how to find what's effective with them instead of trying to put them all in my box of like, you do what I tell you to do, and that's it.
Thank you, and I'm sure that it's just scratching the surface. I mean, I think of the challenges of being a mom too. It's interesting to hear, you know, from your perspective, what it is like and what those challenges that you face. So then we're going to shift gears again about your wife. So thinking about your wife, and then it can also be wives in general. What do you wish your wife knew about you?
And it's not, I'm just saying this, ladies, and the ladies that are not married, when you get into a relationship or whatever, I mean, this is kind of for after marriage, so, but the thing, and I read this from the Kids Needs Attorneys books, and it makes me feel a little bit selfish, but, you know, it talks about needs, right? And you're talking about, like, how the needs are, you know, if you were hungry, if you were really, really in hunger, you would eventually get to the point where you would go against your morals and steal bread, right, to eat, or steal food to eat. Right? Well, a man has a need for sexual fulfillment. And if it goes unmet long enough, this man's going to look outside of his marriage. And since I'm speaking to the ladies here, I've been trying to, you know, if I was speaking to the guys, I'd be pounding on them about something different. But just that you realize how much your husband has that need in his life, or when you get married, how much your husband will have that need in his life. Because, I mean, really, like I said, this guy interviewed 10,000 men, and it was generally every man's number one need. So just, I guess, Susan and I are okay, I'm not saying that, but it's not, I don't want to always be like, hey, you know, do you feel like messing around tonight or something like that? So, okay. Yeah, she's
I'll go with that.
I was going to say no, but I appreciate, Dan, that you touched on that. So my husband and I talk about in front of my dad.
Yes, that was
that's why I went first, too. I took the best. So you can talk about something totally different.
I'm going to this. So this might apply to anybody whose husband or significant others have played sports growing up, but she kind of gets this, but I wish she understood how competitive I am. So it's not just that I'm competitive, that when I win, I want to rip out your throat, stomp on it, and you to know how much better I am.
Like, who wants to play checkers with that?
Yes. And so she is awesome at letting me take crazy adventures. I get to do guy trips kind of once or twice a year or whatever, and part of it is that competition of doing something different, climbing, dreaming, getting better, and it's one of the reasons I still play sports, although not as competitive as I used to, is because it's like this. I've been doing it since I was 5. Like this, I have to win, you know. I probably need to see somebody about that. But,
I feel the same way.
Yeah, right. So you know, and even like with my 8-year-old, like I won't play this game, stupid game called
And I was like, yes, that literally has been since you're 5. That hasn't changed. That's a 5-year-old relationship.
So if you're with somebody who played sports, just know that doesn't ever go away. And so encourage him in that, because if he doesn't get it out of his system somewhere else, he will get it in his system at home, and that's just a fight waiting to happen.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It'll come on to Candyland.
That is why, though, you can't always let your children win. Okay? You always let them win and lean that way. And who was it? I think it was J.R. Lee that spoke a couple weeks ago that said, I don't let my child win all the time. I show them, because when they get out there, they're not going to win all the time. He is a sore loser, too. and it's funny because my other son-in-law and Kelly's sister Amy, they're just like him. They're so competitive, so it's very challenging when we play games. But, you know, being married so long is, I think many of you probably read the book about love languages. You know, we all have a love language. And men's love language, one is touch. I love cuddling with my wife. I don't know if that's wrong.
I love it. I love cuddling with my wife.
I love spending time with my wife. We ride bikes together. We camp together. So she knows what makes me. She'll rub my back for a half hour. I wouldn't rub anybody's back for a half hour. But she knows my love language, and hers is fix, build, paint, do anything. I clean bathrooms every week. That's my job. And she'll tell you I clean them better than her, but that's because I keep doing it, I think. So, that's one thing, is finding out what makes your husband tick. I know Tim, he likes to relax and watch sports. That's him, and is competitive, and Kelly knows that, but it's finding that out. And you get better at it as you go on, but she still squeezes a toothpaste strong.
Okay, thank you for that. It's interesting to hear, like, as I'm listening to my mom and dad, and like their different love languages and pieces of that I take. But I do think that that's something else that while you're interviewing and you have your reporter notebook out, ask that and try and figure that out for yourself too, the way that you like to be loved. And once you communicate that, if you know, it's just that much easier, because it's not going to be, Tim, my dad talks about how snuggly he is. My husband is not that way, poor guy, and that's my love language. So, I'll hug and squeeze on him, and it takes work, but he's reciprocated that for me, and he will do that. So, if it's not your natural bent, at least you know. So, scrubbing something is not the way that I feel loved, but I'm like, okay, if that works for him, then I'll work towards that. And you don't have to do that for one person. You don't have to do that for everyone in this room, and your best friend, and your sister, and you just need to do that for one person. It's worth it. It's worth it to keep things working well. So let's see, let me do a time check. We got a few more minutes. Are you guys okay that we continue? I want to give you guys a little bit of discussion time, but we'll continue. We'll maybe take about 10 more minutes. I would like to ask you guys, from your perspective, I think that I've sat in that seat, and I think a lot of women have sat in the seat where maybe your husband is not leading at home. And that can be spiritually, that can be stepping up as a dad, that can just be being the man and the protector of the home, or whatever you would view that as sitting here, whatever that looks like. What can that wife do who's sitting in that chair to encourage her husband to lead?
I think there's two different questions there. I think one is, your husband is a Christian. Because if he's not, then that's natural. That's to be expected. If he is, and he refuses to lead, there's some sort of deeper question, like what is his personal relationship with Christ look like? Is it active? Is it growing? Is it progressive? Is it growing? Because men are wired to lead. And that looks like a lot of different things. That doesn't mean, I make all the decisions and what I say probably goes. But we are called to lead our families and to lead our lives and to encourage them in the Word. When we're called to love our wives as Christ loved the church, and to be that. People talk about, people get upset that husbands are called to be the head of their families. Well, that's not 2017. It's not how it's supposed to be. That's right. But we are called to lead, and loving our wives like Christ loved the church involves a heck of a lot of submission. People think that wives are only supposed to submit to their husbands, but Christ submitted entirely to his Father's will and to the church, his bride. And so, if your husband's not leading, there's something there that's not come to the surface yet. I think, because I think it's a clear call in Scripture.
So that was great, but I'm going to spin off that a little bit in a different direction, because I think men naturally want to lead. Everybody wants to be the team captain, right? Everybody wants to bat fourth or be the quarterback. Every man, they want to be the star of the team, right? And so, but when it comes, like the home I grew up in, what was modeled is my dad was at work all the time. He went to the bar after work, and my mom's at home cooking, cleaning, making sure I do my homework, blah blah blah. So my dad wasn't like an absentee dad. I don't want to say that. Like I'd see him, but I never saw him making decisions. My mom and dad always made that in private, right? So some of it, as a wife or mom or whatever, when you see your husband doing something that's a positive move, like we have this thing. Nobody can decide what we're going to have for dinner at our house. Hey, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? So just encouraging them. Even a small leadership role like that, like thank you for making that decision, or thank you. You know what I mean? As far as those words of affirmation, because a man craves that. It's like, oh wait, it's like I said, it's like the dog. It's like, hey, you can train him to make more decisions. Men are pretty easy, ladies. You know that, but it's just encouraging. The spiritual thing, absolutely. I mean, God has given me this responsibility to lead my family spiritually, and I'm saying that. I mean, Susan and I are partners, but so we'll talk about things. But usually, if we're having a strong disagreement, we'll pray about it. We'll take a break and pray about it, and then usually God will bend one of our wills to the other one. So it's not like I'm just dominating her, but I don't just bend to her either, and she doesn't just bend to me. So,
Jim, I appreciate that you went to the root of it. Like a lot of that might be the root of if a husband is not walking with the Lord or doesn't yet know him. And I appreciate that you gave us a simple application though of how to get it started and encouraging his leadership. So I love that.
Yeah, I would say just a couple of things not to do. Nagging is just never going to work. Period. It's just not going to work. When a guy, it is. When a guy hears you never do anything around the house, or those handles in the cabinets, you're like, you've been saying you're going to do that for a year.
The old handles were right there, though. They're kind of ugly and falling off.
It just doesn't work. And I totally agree with everybody wants to be a star quarterback. But somewhere along a guy's journey, laziness sets in. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, because of how much is on our plate. And so it's just easier to come home and do nothing. And be like, I provide, I do this, I do that. Why don't you get that? So it's just really easy to be lazy. And you're exactly right, that's not what the Bible calls us to be. And it is a huge pet peeve of mine that I can do that sometimes, but also when I see it in men, it's like, man up. You are a man, be a man. But the problem is you can't say that to your husband. Is that right? Right? I could say that to Jim.
Do not try this at home.
Right. So it's like the context of the conversation. You can't say that, but I can say that to my buddy or somebody in my men's group or whatever. So what can you do to encourage that, your spouse or whatever in that? And it's just like you would train a dog, actually. Positive reinforcement. We are as simple as a dog. And it really is. So, yes, they didn't fix the broken handle on the toilet or whatever, but they did do this, and like, wow, that was awesome. Thank you for doing that. And what that does for us is it's affirmation, it's respect more than anything. And it's like, oh, okay. And then the next time you ask for something to be done, if your tone is right, tone's a big deal to a guy, by the way. It might be the whole deal when you're having a conversation. When your tone is right, when you do it in a respectful manner, all of a sudden, we're much easier, much more likely to do whatever it is you're asking. And then all of a sudden, we get this habit of leading, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that would be the first thing, don't nag, positive reinforcement. And then the second is, guys are going to be like the people that hang around. And that's true of all of us in life, particularly with guys. And so if you're hanging out with other couples and you're like, man, that guy's a dud, maybe don't hang out with him. And maybe find some other people, couples to hang out with that you know the guy has a solid relationship. It's just going to rub off. And the next thing you know, you're having spiritual conversations around dinner with that guy's making some pursuit towards Christ in some way, whether it's in a small group or just wanting to come to church more. But if you can hang around the right people, I think those would be the two suggestions I would make.
Appreciate you.
You know, as I picked up something in Tim's, what he was saying, it's words that you use, like you always, you never. Them are two of the worst things to throw at a man. You always and you never. Because we don't always and we don't never. And when it's like them words that they cut to the heart. That's what you say, well, but I'll never. Right? It's disrespectful. And it's affirmation. I know, and the biggest thing you can do is pray for your husband. My wife prays for me every morning. She's a prayer warrior. She'll hurl scriptures at me. When I'm down, she'll say, she's my prayer warrior. She's my defender. She brings to mind the Word of God to me. And as I work on my relationship, and I love Northridge Church, and a lot of churches are developing men's ministries and men's groups. And the scripture says, iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And when men get together and women like this, I commend you all for doing this. I wish in our early marriage that we would have been close to Christ and we would have. We did pretty good, and then we came to Christ and our lives changed. But as we grow in our relationship with Christ, we grow together. So that's the thing, is pray for your husband. Because only God can change your heart. They say when we work, all we get is what we do. But when we pray, God works. And we get what God can do. That's where it says God and me are an overwhelming majority. So, you got to remember that only God can change a person's heart. As much as you want to change your husband, as much as, you want things changed, God works. And like I said, that's what my wife's done for me.
And thinking about that prayer, so many times I have gone to God when I was hurting or we were struggling. I want God to change him, and that's what my prayer is. And God inevitably ends up changing me and shifting something in me or giving me more grace or forgiveness or compassion. So that's so important. One of the things that you guys are talking about is being with men. Northridge has a new men's pastor. We've had a women's ministry, lead, but we haven't had that. So that's something new, and Northridge is kind of like zoning in on that. And for you as women, I feel like I know there are husbands walking around and you're thinking, he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have community, or he's got buddies that go hang out, on Thursday nights at happy hour, but he doesn't have men of God or men of integrity. And so don't go to him and talk to him about it because it's in his box and he already knows about that. But for you can take that to God. And Tim had that established when we lived in Michigan, and we moved to Florida and we were away for a handful of years. And I thought, what are we going to do without that? He needs that. He needs that time with men. He needs that outlet. That's who he's going to go play tennis with or whatever these guys are going to go run and do competitively. And so I thought, well, what are we going to do? Now we're leveled and we don't have that. You can pray those men into your husband's life. And truly, You know, we might take 7 of those really close girlfriends, they need 1. So that's what you can do actively in that role while you're waiting for him to have that. Super important. Let's see if we have time for just one more. Let's do how your relationship with God impacts your marriage. What changes or differences have you seen in that?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so for me, it's about how we resolve conflict, I guess, right? Everybody's going to fight. We already talked about that. I look at how Jesus resolved conflict, right? And I very specifically think about how I resolved it with Peter. When Peter's saying, you know, you're not going to wash my feet. And then Jesus is like, hold on, Peter, if I'm not going to wash your feet, then you're not going to have anything to do with me, right? So it's kind of a fight Peter and Jesus are having. And it got resolved by Jesus bending down, the person who did nothing wrong, and washing the sinner's feet, right? Now, when we're in a conflict, we always think that we're the Jesus person, we're the right person, right? And still, he humbled himself and got down and washed Peter's feet. And now, I'm bad at it, but my goal would be to, when Susan and I are having a conflict, to be the one to say, instead of fighting or fleeing, that I'm going to be the one who forgives. You know?
I think it's how my relationship with God impacts
Your marriage.
I think it makes it possible because we have both agreed that this is the path that's kind of laid out for us. We're going to follow God's word. Now, we frequently execute that forward. We get into conflicts. We, flip out on the kids when they're doing something silly and they don't want to do. So we make constant mistakes, but we're both in agreement that this is the plumb line. This is the path that we're going to take. This is the structure that we both are in agreement that we can correct each other. Not in a get her back type of way, but we both know that that's our authority. And if you're not, it's going to be a challenge if you're not both submitted to the same authority.
Yeah, I had said before, we had a relationship before Christ, me and my wife, and then we had one after. So, before Christ, we went against what Romans said. Romans 12:2, where it says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. And that's what we did. We conformed to the pattern of the world before Christ. So once we came to Christ, and as we grew in our relationship, the Bible is called a canon, and a canon is from the Greek word, which is a rule or a measure. And if we measure our life up to what God's word says, and we know where we fall short, but if we use that as something to guide our life by, it sets out full basic principles, how marriage should work, how it doesn't work, forgiveness, compassion, serving. That changed the trajectory of my whole life. And I think the closer you come with Christ, even if it's just you and you set the example, that sooner or later your husband's just going to have to get on board, or he's going to have to change. And that's something that we, once we're now Christian, it's been over 17 years now, but divorce isn't in our vocabulary. We never talk about divorce. That's something that we're in it for the long haul. People come into your life for a season, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you need to recognize that your husband is in your life for a lifetime. It may be an eternity here, but it'll be an eternity there. But, and know that if you have to go to marriage counseling, if you have to go to individual counseling, we have. And I can tell you the word that changed us, but nothing changes more than Christ. And as we go forward from here on, we just love our marriage. I'm more in love with my wife than I've ever been.
Thank you.
I would say my relationship with Christ, our relationship with Christ, is, like you said, it's the only thing that makes it possible to stay married. From experience, I believe that every marriage is a bad week away from a bad month, away from a bad marriage. You know, we all know how life works. You have a bad day, it turns into an argument, that's a bad week. Next thing you know, he doesn't love me, she doesn't respect me. A month goes by, you hate each other, and then you're going down a really dangerous path. And today, in the age of social media and everybody's super interconnected, all it takes is one little thought being planted in your mind of how much it could be better, and that's game over. And we don't have to raise our hands, we all know other marriages that's pretty much how it happened. And they're not together. And you know, as we look at our two little girls, that's all the motivation they need. You know, if something happened to our marriage, their lives are destroyed. It's just, they're going to have issues the rest of their life, and I'm just not willing to let that happen. And so for me personally, if I'm not spending a significant amount of time with Jesus on a regular basis, I have no chance. Because I'm just not that good at my own. And so for me, I've got a routine, spending time in the morning, getting away on a regular basis with a group of guys, and it's changed everything in our marriage. So I don't think we have a chance without Jesus.
Absolutely, thank you. For those who are looking on ways to get connected, Northridge offers a lot. And we have a care ministry, and they offer counseling, and there's marriage counseling, and there's marriage ministries. We heard from a couple last week that is a part of Marriage Builders. We have those places for you. And so that's something that you can contact us about, or look on the website and know that we want to support those things. Girls, do you mind just thanking them for coming and sharing? We so appreciate it. I know that I come up here and it's intimidating for me, but you guys are so brave, because I know there's a lot of women in here. We so appreciated hearing. Thank you for being just authentic and just sharing from your experiences. Ladies, we're going to take a few minutes to talk before we have to go get our kids. I want you to know, take one thing that you heard today and just apply that. This is not, like I said, we're getting a real shined up example of these men, and I feel like you're not seeing 100% what our marriage looks like every day. These shining lights really add to it, you know, but I want you to know that it's something that does take work, and it's something that if God is not a part of your life or your husband's life, the second that he steps into your marriage, it gives it a new hope and a new purpose. And if that's something you want to talk with your table leader about, please do that. We are praying for you. Girls, enjoy your talk time. Thank you.